Thanks for joining us today, Paul. Paul is from the Digit Group. And Paul, tell us about what you do with your company and how you're integrating AI into your business practices.
Sounds good. And Melanie, thank you for having me on the podcast. Hopefully, your
Pleasure.
listeners will actually have a couple of nuggets out of here.
Okay.
My name is Paul Doherty. I'm an award-winning architect. I've been in practice now a little over 40 years now, and have grown my business from being sole practitioner architect to a contractor to a
Uh-huh.
developer to now a smart cities. Well, I'm considered an expert. I hate that term, but because I think all of us are continuously learning. And
Yep. Yep.
so
You
I
should
start
be. If you're not, something's wrong.
exactly. At the beginning of my career, I had this very unique opportunity that I was going to school in New York City for architecture and was looking at doing a work study program because my grades were really good and I could get my intern hours out of the way. And what
Mm.
happened was I was given an opportunity to work at any of the large firms, but I didn't want to do bathroom details for 3 years. So what I did was I joined up with IBM in the late 80s, where they were the only game in town, and I became their trade show booth designer globally. So I had to learn how computers worked, how they went together hardware wise, and then dealt with these young companies called Microsoft and Adobe and Corel
You
because they
do
were
it.
starting out and they wanted to see their technology on IBM equipment because then they were a business tool. So it was
Okay.
a very interesting exercise because I was looking at all of these different components, hard drives and motherboards and all this stuff, and IBM did not create them. But what they did was they assembled. So it was my first
Mm.
exposure to design for manufacturing and assembly, or DFMA. And I went, well, isn't that exactly what a contractor does? Because
Mm.
he doesn't manufacture the doors or the windows or the roofs, but what they do is that they assemble. So I've always had this thing throughout my entire career, Tony, that I wanted to make sure that buildings became computers because there was no difference in the concept and the workflow. And wouldn't it be interesting to have like o- the computer components and the walls, floors, and ceilings of everything out there, because then we would have the internet of buildings. So this has been my goal. I've been trying to push this agenda forever. And voila, all of a sudden it is now appearing. So when we're looking at the mechanisms, the different tools that we can use, once we have hardware in place, what we're
Hmm.
looking at AI is actually being a tool that allows us to do a lot more with less, meaning that it's a companion. It allows us to do things at a superhuman rate that we just look back and can be amazed. There's also the double-edged sword on that is that most designers use technology tools as a way of increasing production or being more efficient, but that's very selfish because shouldn't we be using these tools as part of our design motif? In other words, imagine integrating AI into the walls, floors, and ceilings of a structure, physical AI. This is what NVIDIA is pushing now. It's no longer
Hmm.
making chips for data centers, but for the built environment. This becomes
Hmm.
a new tool for us as designers to use to create better experiences, more inspired experiences, safer environments, more secure environments. So I'm a big proponent of saying, yeah, that's very good that like you saved, 2 days by using AI in schematic design, but no one cares. It doesn't matter. You should be doing that. But what gets really interesting is when you can take certain tools and combine them with AI. Now we get something special because AI by itself is like cotton candy. It tastes really good when you're starting it, but man, by the end you get no nutrition, you got a tummy ache. But if you use AI in workflow, or if you use AI as part of a component, like imagine AI driving drones. What would that do to the job site? Now all of a sudden we don't have to have a human being there for doing just a mission to see what the site looks like. But wouldn't it be interesting to have AI be that scheduler, that way of making sure and ensuring that continuous data is flowing so that we can see problems before they exist, so that we can find people that maybe don't have their hard hat on that day. Very, very subtle little things that eventually will make things go away that are harmful to the human race.
Well, there was an article today, just today, LinkedIn, about AI, and it was one of those people who thinks AI needs more guardrails. It was very clear that that person does not think AI should be let to go running wild, which I don't think anything should be able to go running wild. That never goes well, and it doesn't matter what it is. But they were very concerned that AI could take over. And they said, if AI takes over, what does AI need us for? And I guess in the worst dystopian way that you could think of it, that's true. However, I don't think, at least I hope not, that the generation of my children who are in their 20s will ever allow that to happen, that they will
Mhm.
insist that something, you know, be guardrails put in place so that it can't take over and we become a world like Wall-E, where we're all sitting around watching TV while the robots do everything. Having said that, I do believe that AI is a tool, like a pencil in our hands, because when AutoCAD came out years ago, because I have the same level of experience as you, everybody said drafting was going to go away. Have you seen drafting go away?
Of course not.
Drafting hasn't gone away. It's still there. It's the drawing sets now are huge. There's all kinds of different things that are happening with it. The only thing, like when you said you didn't want to start as a junior doing detailing for 3 years, but you know how to do it, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you had to learn
So
it.
you had to learn it. Do they need to learn that now?
Yes, more so now.
Yes. More so now, but is AI going to teach them or are you going to teach them as a mentor?
I think it would be a blend, because
Okay,
again,
that's a good
there
compromise.
there's pieces of the educational process that are myopic, that are
Mm,
not up to date, that
mm,
tend to have a skewed version of
yeah,
what's important.
yeah.
When I can now take an agentic AI solution, and I know of one because I've watched it work, that could take a 100,000 square foot glass and steel office building
Mhm,
in Mississauga, right? And
yeah.
I give it a performance spec, I give it a Revit model, and I upload. This particular schematic design tool will go in, take a look at the performances necessary for every single piece of equipment that is specified in that particular submittal. It will then go ahead and localize it for Mississauga. It'll then take it and find the lead times, adhere to a schedule, create purchase orders for the local purchasing, and an accurate quantity takeoff that a human could probably never do in this speed. It took five
Mhm,
seconds, Mel. 5 seconds.
yeah, I
Now, here's
believe
the
it.
problem with that. Speed is not our friend in the construction industry. We thrive on
Mm,
slowness. We love slowness. Why? Because then we're careful. We
yeah.
understand every T's crossed, every I's dotted. An architect's greatest time within that process is the time spent designing inside the four walls of their office. Once it
Mm,
leaves the office in CDs, that's where you either make money or lose money. Every single project, which means that that communication, the design intent, if we can find a way to actually create that speed and embrace it, that is when we're going to have a breakthrough. Up until then, this will just be something like looking at a monkey in the zoo, going, "Is that real? Is that number real? Does that really add up?" And what I'm
mm,
watching with people that are using this tool is that they don't believe it, they don't trust it. So what they
mm.
do, they go back and reverse engineer the entire thing to come up with the same damn number. You've just done the project twice. That's the
Boy.
reality of AI today, because we don't trust
Mm,
speed. We don't like velocity because we feel like we don't control it. And we have a professional license that we need to adhere to. So we're going to be extra
mhm,
careful.
yeah.
So with all that being said, I hear a lot about hallucinations, this thing and that thing. That's almost that's just an outcome that can be fixed. What can't be fixed is human behavior that doesn't trust speed. So what we're looking at doing is actually putting certain circuit breakers, certain speed bumps, so that we have human interaction. So that it's kind of like putting training wheels on AI to say,
Mhm,
speed is good here, stop here, intervene. Let it go. Speed good. Intervene. Speed good. Intervene. That'll take a generation or two because people are not going to trust that. The people that do embrace it and do trust it, and they're going to be the winners because all of a sudden
mhm,
it's a new way of working. It's actually an entire new paradigm of speed versus slowness, and we're going to see that be something that's not evenly distributed. You're going to have certain firms and certain people that love it, embrace it, and they're going to thrive, while the others are still stuck in the traditional way, but at least they don't get sued. Or do they? Because is that now the new
mm,
standard of care? The standard of
mm,
care is going to be the driver for a lot of this, Melanie. And I know for a fact that there will be lawsuits based around AI outcomes that people are going to look at as those case laws to set a new standard for standard of care. Once that happens, it redefines what it means to be an architect,
Mm,
redefines, because you're still the designer, but the responsibilities now are so immense. You're going to have to use AI to manage AI. This is where the fun comes in. I also look at it as a way of extending, existential energy of the designer into the actual physical manifest itself of a building. And what I mean by that is that if you have AI, which is a digital flow, it's almost like a nervous system that is creating this digital version of what's going to be
yep.
the physical version. This is where the term digital twins has been bastardized, but I look at it as an opportunity because although using AutoCAD, using Revit, whatever you're doing, by the way, I was part of the original Revit founding team. I apologize in
You have
advance.
experience. You have
Yeah.
experience.
And what happens is when you create that digital version, the provenance, right? The original and origin of the design intent, to carry
Hmm.
that through and having AI protect those design intents without looking at, well, I've already done the value engineering. You don't need to change this. I've already done this. I've already done that because that's what AI is good. It does things in the background. It's kind of like watching a duck swim on a pond, right? It looks like it's
Hmm.
just very elegant, but underneath it's going nuts. That's AI, right? So,
Isn't
so
that all
now,
of us?
yeah,
That's all of us
just
in
about.
design. We always look so cool and calm, and inside our brains are like wired.
And wearing black.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I
So
have
when I
on
take a
yellow
look,
too. Whoops, where'd it go? I had
oh,
on
so
my
we, so
my
we can call
cancer
you,
pen. Oh well.
well, if it's yellow, we can call you Sting.
Or a B, one or the other. Let's not go there.
So one of the things that I'm looking at now is redefining what that existential energy is and how does it transform into the built environment with that spirit of good design. I'm part of a group called the Design Futures Council that was originally created or co-founded by Dr. Jonas Salk.
Okay.
So in the latter part of his career, he was fully convinced that the design of spaces that heal, hospitals, needs to be
Right?
reimagined. That color,
Mm,
airflow, sunlight, the
mm,
size of the rooms, the dimensions of the rooms will affect a person's recovery.
of course it would.
So, with Jim Kramer, who then was the executive director of the American Institute of Architects, they formed the Design Futures Council. Um,
Hmm.
I'm proud to be a fellow in it because a lot of that energy manifestation comes from the DFC. It's one reason why here in the US, when you go into a hospital today, it doesn't look like a Soviet Stalag station, right? It looks more like a hotel because they
Exactly.
took a lot of those design motifs and put that in there. So with that type of energy, wouldn't it be interesting now to have AI capture that spirit of what the designer was thinking when those 3D spaces were created, and then the
Hmm.
movement through those spaces becomes something that is tied to the digital model itself. I have two 15-year-old boys, and I was really worried during COVID about how they would grow up because
Mm,
for 2 years they were looking at a computer screen and that was their school life.
whole world. Yep.
And you know that, going to school, public schools, half of your education is learning how to deal with people,
Ooh,
right? Who
that's
the
an
jerks are,
understatement.
who the good people are, and then academics is almost secondary, right? So
Yep.
I'm going, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Well, my boys, are they going to be hermits? Are they going to be socially inept? But I shouldn't have had to, be worried because there was a really cool Who rock album called "The Kids Are All Right." Guess what?
Hmm.
The kids are all right. I should have just butt it out. Why? Because they think differently now. When you look at the online systems that they play, starting with Minecraft and then going to Roblox and winding up with Fortnite, they have social interaction in the same way as if they're facing face to face with those kids. They
Mm,
make fun of each other. They do this, they do that. They grew up in a digital world, but now they're thrust back into the physical world and they don't see a difference. It morphs. The digital world and the physical world are one experience to them. We have a lot
mm,
to learn from that, a lot to learn.
we
Because now all
do.
of a sudden, if that digital element of AI that is now captured in the creation of the digital twin can find itself being used in the actual building itself, well, then we have something. So Kimona Numa, who's one of my favorite architects, he's out in Pasadena, California. He works a lot with the National Institute of Building Sciences in Washington. One of his clients is the Community College System of California. And what we've done is look at the existing building automation systems and building management systems. Because that's really between that and security systems and maybe fire suppression systems, those are the only things in buildings today that even come close to having a nervous system, right?
Hmm.
But if you could overlay those existing systems and allow AI to interact with it, suddenly your building comes alive. Why? Because they're not relying on humans that thrive on slowness to be ahead of things, to simulate things ahead of time. We have an unusual activity, like there's a big lecture, you know, in the lecture room and it's going to be overflowed. AI will
Hmm.
know that because it looks at the schedule and accommodate that ahead of time. Hiring extra security, blah, 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 that the human does not need to deal with. We don't have to deal with the muckety muck, the back office type of stuff because it's done for us. It's called a genius platform. But what's really cool is that we started fooling around with the idea of, well, if we can have automation automate, in other words, AI is taking care of AI, and the outcomes are great. Wouldn't it be really interesting though if we gave every building a personality? So, taking some advice from friends of mine that work at Siri over in Google and the Alexa program with Amazon, I
Hmm.
learned a lot about these smart speakers and how they're even getting better at learning how to be as loved as a pet, right? Because you rely on it, right? And it helps you and yada, yada, yada. Well, we integrated it into the actual buildings themselves, not through smart speaker, but the building actually talks. And we give it personalities because on every campus in the community college system in California, they have a storage facility. We figured that's like an introvert. Not a lot of things happen. It doesn't really communicate a lot.
Hmm.
It's an introvert, as opposed to a high performance lab, which is more like a valley girl, like, oh my God, because it's crazy. Everything's going on, blah, blah, blah. And then
I
we
love your
integrated,
analogies.
and then they have, the classrooms, which are more like an Oxford professor. So what happens is those personalities with the accents and everything else are now a component of the actual experience of the building itself.
Mm.
So during a conference, Alan and I was speaking, and he got a phone call from the classroom on the Petaluma campus saying,
Mm.
"Come on, I'm not feeling too hot today. I think my VIV box may be on the fritz up on the second floor. Could you send someone?" You're having an
Well,
interaction and a conversation with buildings, inanimate objects that suddenly have personalities that will become like your dog. Your house
mm,
is now an active member of your family.
mm,
This is where AI is going. This is how we're looking at physical AI being the enabler to make this happen, which is why I think that speech from 2 weeks ago at the GTC with NVIDIA, I think
yep,
Jensen Huang will go down in history that was the moment that the built environment changed. Because now we can now hook together the Internet of Buildings. We can hook together the Internet of everything together faster, cheaper, with much more success so that we can actually hopefully improve the human condition through design.
so what I'm hearing you say is that as this becomes smarter and smarter, we're going to need less and less people to do the things that are not gray material thinking. So the
Correct.
maintenance guys in the building, maybe there won't be as many needed or differently needed, or they need to learn new tools and tricks and
There's new
trades.
skills, correct?
Yeah.
There's new skills, right? Because just like anything, if it has its own personality, it's going to need interaction, which means do you become, I can see in the future having building psychiatry because your AI is not too happy. So let's fix it. Right? I mean, we're talking about, we're right now at the threshold, the starting line of an entirely new way of thinking about buildings and design that architects need to really catch up on because it is not about the physical structure itself. That's the easy stuff. What happens when you actually start with the human being that's either inhabiting that particular residential building or happens to be there part-time because it's their office building or it's a firehouse or it's a library. We have to
Hmm.
rethink the human's interaction within that space. In architectural school, I did my thesis on architecture as frozen music. And what I did was I took the mathematical ratios of different types of music during different periods of time and watched to see, did the architects capture the spirit of music within the mathematical ratios of height, length, width, and movement through your building?
Yep.
So what I did was I took the Baroque period and used Bach and used
Mm.
some examples of the Baroque period, which is very ornamental. It was
Hmm.
absolutely mathematically perfect.
Wow.
Perfect. Did Stravinsky's Rite of Spring and matched that up with Le Corbusier. Absolutely perfect. Perfect. The last one I did, because I was in school in the 80s, was I used former Rhode Island School of Design architectural students, talking heads, and
Hmm.
I put their music to Richard Meyer. Melanie, it was
Ooh.
perfect.
Wow.
So when you take a look at how everything is connected to everything, and you can prove it out through mathematical ratios in my case, what happens when we start then to rethink what a human's needs are, what are the requirements, what are the outcomes, so that we don't become Wall-E. We don't become the fat people just laying around and eating bonbons. That we actually
Yeah.
have more time to be more human. That's what AI brings us. We're going to have more time to be more human. Now, what does that mean? Well, there's different levels of human. Thank God we're not all the same. But what that also means is that, if you have more time to do things, are you going to spend more time doing fantasy football, or maybe researching that one thing in design that you just didn't have time for? Everyone's going to be different, but you are going to have more time. I hope, and all I can do is provide the environments for this to happen, because you can't engineer humans. People have tried,
No. Yeah.
right?
Can't.
But you can provide the environments for them to thrive, or to be lazy, or go take a nap. But that's human, and
But all those people exist now.
and I think we should celebrate that.
Mm.
We should be celebrating the differences, instead of saying, well, that can't be right. It's like you're either with me or you're against me. That whole attitude. I mean, it's just so medieval. Maybe that worked when we were knuckle draggers in caves, but we've evolved. Man.
It's fear. All that you or me, you against me is a fear thing of unknown, whatever the other person's opinion, information is, whatever. And I think that right now is what is happening with AI from what I see. That there's either adopters like you. I'm obviously adopting it because that's how I found you. But what I'm saying is that you either are willing to be open to it and use it, control it to some extent, or you're going to sit there like a puddle in the corner and the world's going to pass you by.
Well, there's a place in the world for the Amish too.
There is, but I'm saying this as a mother of 22-year-old twins that I don't want to be supporting people who don't work hard for the rest of my living days.
Well said. Well said. Which is why I love these types of conversations, because they're not ordinary. We're really pushing some boundaries. It is not
Mhm.
outside the box, but I think we're we're breaking through the box, right? It's not thinking outside the box. I think that those terms and everything, words are important, right? And I think they fit at certain times in humans' evolution. And I
Mhm.
think we're finding a new vocabulary to help describe what experiences are, because isn't that what buildings are? They're the
It should be.
stages for experiences. Yeah, and some are bad,
It should
really
be.
bad.
Yeah, some are terrible.
I mean, like when I
You
first went
walk
to
in and go,
Dubai,
I need to get out of here. It's like, ugh, this is
right?
awful.
And that's
Yep.
the negative energy.
So I'm going to tell you a quick story. My son,
And that's the
I
negative
have
energy.
22-year-olds, as I said. Yeah, I'm going to tell you a quick story. I have 22-year-old twins. Same thing in COVID. They were in grade 10, 2 years at home. And what I said to them was, you know what? You can't stay at home because I'm gonna strangle you. I just can't have you around all the time because I'm working from home and you can't be here. So I got them a job at the local grocery store because I was on the parent teacher council and I phoned the guy that I was calling for donations and said, "Hey Tony, can I get the kids to work a little bit?" All my friends told me I was insane because it was, high COVID. And I said, "Hey, they're 15. They're healthy as horses. They need to learn how to function in whatever this is going to bring to the world." And they learned so much about how to deal with people because people were highly stressed at that time.
Yeah.
It was the best experience to the point now where they are working while they're at school and their bosses love them because they're interactive. They react to people, they come, reach out to people, try to draw people in and calm people down and all this sort of stuff. And I said to them, that's the same thing with AI. So my daughter's going to be a vet. She wants to know how to use AI in diagnostic stuff for animals because
Mm,
they can't speak. So it seems to me that would be a great way of knowing how to use
that's a great
AI.
way. Yeah,
because a dog's not going to tell you what's wrong with it. But if you're looking at all the options of what's happening, hopefully AI can sort of help you in that direction. And then my son is going to be an electrical engineer.
very
So I
cool.
said to him, yeah, he had a class with an geothermal engineer who said that he's having a hard time getting AI into his profession. So he's teaching in the engineering department at Noah's University, and he's getting a hard time from people our age wanting to use AI because what would take them 2 weeks in calculations for water tables is taking like an hour. And they're very upset about it.
Slowness is wonderfully embraced. Love slowness.
Yeah. But slowness does not always mean accuracy. And
No,
that's my
no, not definitely
challenge.
not. Yeah,
Yeah, that there's just so much. And coming from that world, I know how much information is in your head that you know is in your head and what you're planning to do in the project. Sometimes the disconnect between your head and the drawing, not all the information gets over one to the other. And you're usually working on 4 or 5 projects at the same time. So I'm not casting aspersions. I've been where they are. I know how hard this is, and you have too. I'm hoping that AI is going to help kind of bridge the gap, that something will pick up, when you're sending out a spec, this might be missing or that could be added or whatever, so that the drawings and the whole process becomes smoother, as opposed to resisting it because it's not the way you've done it for 100 years. If that was the case, none of us would be driving cars.
we have a project in the Middle East going on right now, and I put some project objectives.
Ah,
By the time that CDs are released, I expect with our AI stack, which is all agentic, that
yeah.
I want 0 RFIs, 0 change
Yeah.
orders, and no shop drawing.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, Paul, because this is a business decision too. Because I know
Mhm.
you put in a quote for a tender. You're doing your proposal to win the project. There's X amount of dollars with that. Is not T&M at the end when you get RFIs or COs and shop drawing reviews? Is there not money involved in that?
Certainly is, but it comes right back into the budget. It's not spent.
Okay, so you're going to pre-plan that before.
Yeah,
Okay, because that's a little different than what happens here. That end part of the project here in Canada tends to be as much as the proposal part.
yeah, I know. And I'm also the owner on this. So,
I'm
and
sorry, I didn't hear
because,
that.
and I'm the owner. So that's why I
You're
can
the owner.
propose this. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, so that provides me real measures because that's real money that's either in my pocket or going out of my pocket.
exactly.
And if I can prove that certain stacks of AI agents that may work on one project, but the next project, they could be all dead because here's the problem with AI as like measuring it to software.
Hmm.
Software, if you had a good product and it was called first mover advantage, you were first to
Yeah,
market, got a large market share, you won.
yeah,
That's how
yeah,
that's how come Autodesk is in the position that is. It's
yeah.
not because they're a good software company. So with AI, if you're first mover, you're dead because just the nature of the algorithm itself says that you will be obsolete because there will be someone else that literally leapfrogs you in 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, which is
Hmm.
why a lot of these groups like Anthropic with Claude and, and of course, OpenAI and all these
Yeah,
different groups.
yeah.
That's why they approach AI slightly differently, where Claude is more of a programming prompting type of way of
Mhm.
working,
Mhm.
even with, verbal, which will be coming out with
Yeah,
Claude, as opposed
yeah,
to ChatGPT, which is kind of just like a large scale Google, you know?
yeah,
And I
yeah,
find that the older generation tends to use ChatGPT more than any other AI because it's like putting your big toe into it. And that's good enough. I can say I used AI. And there's people then that thrive on it, learning how to use prompting as a way to communicate with it.
yeah.
But I'm liking where X and XAI, which is about 10 minutes from my house here in Memphis, that's the
Okay.
supercomputer.
Yeah.
I'm watching where they're going with this, and they're using an approach that's very Leonardo da Vinci, where everything's connected to everything. They're combining sound with words, with visuals, and creating this really interactive way of having expressions be met, where I think it's going to help us as designers rethink sizes, rethink structures, rethink how people interact with their space, because right now we do it through movement through space, right? But why don't we focus in on sound more? Why isn't sound in the spec,
Mm.
right? And it's a huge big piece. Smell. Smell is
Yeah.
such a powerful enabler
Oh,
of memory. But
huge.
the only thing I've ever seen in the spec about smell is watch out for the VOCs of the carpet. Allow it to air out. What?
Yes.
That's it?
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Why aren't those things, which are human senses, even
Yes.
thought about within our architectural designs? I almost feel like as a profession, we're still crawling. We haven't even stood up yet, let alone walk or run. I mean, we
Mm.
have so much longer to go. And I think right now, I look at our profession like a blank canvas. And now that we have these newer tools and we have the luxury of being pioneers, well, look, let's be pioneering. Let's go out there and start to take senses that used to take a lot of time, right, to be able to do that. But when I see like what Grok and XAI are doing, going, they're going to make it easy because they're already doing it with sound, they're already doing it with visuals, which are stunning, and they're already doing it with what we call computing, which is text and
Yeah.
and things like that. So as computing evolves into this new way of interacting, I'm looking at AI as being a very, very strong tool for designers because of the way that we can now talk to a phone that has an AI app and it will write the code and come up with the outcome and I could throw it away. We're in the age of disposable software. We have
Mhm.
to be comfortable with that. Have to be comfortable with that. And the fact that the cost of doing this with the amount of compute power that we now have, I can see us solving a lot of issues. In Dubai, I was one of the designers of Expo 2020, the World's Fair, and
Mhm.
one of the big things that we had to take consideration of was what was the legacy of this thing? Because according to the rules of the World's Fair, only the host country can keep their pavilion up. Everything else has to be torn down. So we created it as a district.
Okay.
I was looking at originally before COVID, it was meant to be a makers district. Sounded cool,
Mhm.
right? Well,
Mhm.
during COVID, China banned the use of crypto mining, where they accounted for 90% of all the crypto mining. Where's it going to go? Well, Texas, a lot. But it's expensive. Their electric grid is rickety, yada, yada, yada. So
Mhm.
I looked at leadership in Dubai and I said, I think I have an idea. This is an expat heaven. 90% of the people are not from here, but you have a school system set up with international schools. You've got great healthcare. It's safe. Well, it was safe until the bombing. We have this opportunity, a market opportunity, where you have a nuclear reactor coming online in 2 years. So that's
Mhm.
cheap, free, and clean energy. And I
Mhm.
said, and you're surrounded by water. So how
Mhm.
about we make this a place for data mining and crypto bros? And they accepted. They said, okay, yeah, but now we need a data center. So I went to my friends over in Austin, Texas at Dell Computer because they're the number one racks. Like you always hear about NVIDIA, but you still need servers, you still need racks to work.
Max.
And my friend ran that OEM unit to put together all these different data centers. And so
Mhm.
I explained the situation, what I wanted, because they had just installed a data center that was submerged in synthetic oil so that
Oh.
it kept the heat gain of those servers low. So they didn't need as much air conditioning, right? I went, oh, that's really cool. But they said, but knowing you, that's not good enough. I said, what do you mean? They said, you've been talking about buildings as computers. So what we're building right now is an inside out data center where that downtown district is our working servers as a building. They took ruggedized computer components and server components that they designed for the Department of Defense, and now
Okay.
I'm putting them on the facade of every one of the buildings so
Wow.
that it keeps it cooler, and it also makes a really, really cool way of having data exchange that we use Starlink to actually make it happen. So now those are the buildings that are static, right? And that's where the majority of data is going to be stored, is inside of these living buildings that are offices and residences and everything else. So
Yep.
the design challenge was, how do you take something that's very industrial looking and then make that attractive, almost like the Pompidou Center, right? Which was an inside out building. right, in Paris. So I'm doing that now with tech, except that we're also inviting Tesla users into the district because Tesla do not consider their vehicles cars. They consider them moving computers. And that the computing power of each one of the Teslas, maybe 10 to 15% is all that's ever used while you're driving. When you're parked, it uses even less. So what we would do is ask permission from those users that we could actually have the static servers of the buildings compute and use this power of the unused power of the Teslas that are moving. So it becomes a static and a dynamic way of creating a new form of data center like the world's never seen. So
Wow.
different.
That's very cool. So, what made you decide to do work exactly the way you did? Like, were you introduced to it by someone else? You got a commission on a large project and then referrals came to you? How did you actually become to be what you are now and do what you do?
I think it just started back in school when I was doing, designing trade show booths for IBM, and then just manifest that all the way through. I think writing some books about it. I wrote a book about how to use the internet when AOL and CompuServe were considered the internet back in the mid 90s. And I was saying, no, there's this thing called a web browser. Trust me. Well, it worked. It wasn't a fad. The way that I'm looking at all of this and how I got there, I have to say that there was a documentary made a number of years ago, and it is almost identical to my life. It's called Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
I am the manifestation of Forrest Gump. I don't know how I meet these people. I get involved with this stuff. I've not been shot in the buttocks and I don't run. But besides that, it's pretty accurate. But yeah, so Melanie, if I could look back, I don't think that there was any one, lightning bolt moment. I think that like everything, everyone has their journey. And sometimes, I can get lucky and see how these dots are connected. Right now, I own a company out of Louisville, Kentucky called Skyhawk Systems. It is a drone company. And these drones are going to be doing something like no other drone has done. The individual drones, that's cool. And they do a lot of fun stuff, especially in construction. But what I'm looking to do is create the internet of drones where NVIDIA chips will be on each one of the drones so that I can create squadrons or swarms that can do different things that humans can't do, including dangerous situations out on construction sites, right? Being able to have those drones go in and have missions and actually work as a team. That's why
Hmm.
it's the Internet of Drones. Instead of having one controller with one pilot with one task, let's start having continuous information, feedback, and have AI double check it to make sure that the design intent is going well. The means and methods of this construction are going well. Do all the workers have their hard hats on? I mean, all those little things that a human would spend a lot of time and money on could be done in a nano instant for pennies. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at this as physical AI that changes how we procure our projects that move beyond just design. But it's still, in my mind, it's still part of design. The design should always be there, including into the life cycle. I know contractually we're not supposed to get involved with facility management and operations after we hand over the keys. But at the end of the day, I think it's a moral and ethical responsibility that we should understand what is what I created. Is it running well? Is the design intent really coming through? Because then I can learn to be a better designer. And we never do that post-mortem. Never do that post-mortem. With
It's
the
too
advent
late
of
at that
AI
point.
and this data, well, it could be, but for the
Hmm.
next project, I know not to do that,
Yes.
right? You
Yes.
know, and I wouldn't be surprised if your insurance company will start requiring things like that because the data is so accessible now. This is why the world of digital twins becomes a very, very important design tool because it's not just being able to hand it over to a facility manager or an operator or a homeowner. It's about self-learning and understanding that we don't know everything, right? We think
No.
we hire the right experts to help, but sometimes we make mistakes and they don't need to be highlighted, but I think we should learn, constantly learn.
Yeah.
I've learned more through my spectacular failures than all the good stuff I've done. Spectacular failures, like,
I'm going to say something as a mother of 22-year-olds, which you'll get there. Very hard to watch your children make a spectacular mistake and not do anything about it.
yeah, yeah. As long as they do something about it, that would be satisfying, actually, because it's like, good.
Yep. But you still have to watch that train coming right for them, Paul, and go, oh, I can't do anything. You got to watch, you got to figure this out yourself.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Bugs Bunny, Wile E. Coyote model, right?
Exactly. It's exactly that. And they don't see it, of course, but they will in about 5 years. I guess yours will get a little bit longer. So let's
Yeah.
ask about, I'm going to ask you about, are you using AI for marketing or do you need it at all because of your reputation?
Yes, I do actually, but not
Okay.
so much. It's like an indirect marketing. What I do, I like to write. It's my little, you know, skill that I like to hone a lot because I felt that the written word again, that words are important, or is so important in just the communication between people, and especially
Yeah.
when like what you and I do, we have
Yep.
to have a we have to have a conversation with our own designs and allow them to talk back to us about, no, I don't think you should have done that. Why don't you be that type of thing is cool. So I like to write, and when I actually have to put together, an abstract to speak somewhere, or I have an article that's going to be coming out before, a big conference or something. I've
Hmm.
been using AI to not write it for me because I like my own writing, but
Yep.
to hone certain things, and it doesn't correct it, but it says, would this be an angle for this type of audience? And it's getting better. It's getting a
Yep.
lot better, Melanie, where like because I'm using it more and more and more, it's understanding my style, that type of thing. So, that's been good. As opposed to going out with PR and marketing, I find that human to human relationships still trump anything that's AI,
Hands down.
right? So
Hands down.
when I'm invited on Bloomberg TV, I know the producers, I know the anchors, I know these people, and we've had a relationship for like almost 20 years of me being on the show. That's cool, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how AI would enhance that, you know,
Hmm.
but for others, I think that using AI as a strategist tool that can help tie together your business plan to your technology plan to your marketing plan. That's
Hmm.
what AI is good at. It'll help smooth that, because if you're an architect that your main business is doing storage warehouses on the interstate, why do you need Revit? Why?
No.
That's like killing a mosquito with like a bazooka. AutoCAD is fine. That's the right technology. It's okay that you don't use BIM because you don't need it. That's
Mm-mm.
okay. You know,
Hmm.
and then your marketing, you have more money in your budget for marketing because you're not doing 4,000 US dollars a seat for frickin' Revit every year.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
this is what AI would do. It would help hone that and smooth things out. I'm really surprised with a lot of design shops, even the bigger ones, where their their technology plan never even addresses the business plan or the marketing plan. And it's like they're one unit and they're three sections, and they have to, as a business, coexist with each
There's the
other so
key
that it
word,
makes
though.
sense.
There's the key word, though. You're thinking of it as a business as well as a vocation. And I'm AI should help those vocation type thinkers to understand it actually is a business. Because in the big firms in Toronto, for example, the principals are up here, not really working on any projects. They're sort of running the company. But the people in the marketing department, I don't know that there's a correlation between the vision for the company. And I'm not saying this is true. This is what my perception is, that their perception of how they senior people, the very, very highest people who are overseeing this behemoth of a company, and the marketing people actually understand what the advantages are to the seniors, what the plan is for the seniors, other than a very generalized idea. And they sort of stumble through a project, if you know what I mean. Do you know what I'm not putting anybody down because I had my own business for years. That's not what I mean. It's a lot to take on a lot. I get it. But if AI can align those a bit better so that everybody kind of sees the process, that'd be great. But I think a lot of architects still think vocation that happens to make me money instead of going, this is a business that happens to be my vocation. And you think AI is going to bring those together in a more seamless manner. I think there's going to be some resistance by architects, to be honest.
Well, yeah, and these are the ones that can't wait to retire because they don't want to put up with this crap anymore.
I'm glad you said it, not me.
It's going to be the younger generation that actually takes that on. Why?
Yeah.
Because it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense, and it makes money so that you can afford to be an architect. The reason why it was a gentleman's profession was only gentlemen could afford to be an architect because they had the
Mm,
money, right? Turning this into a universal democratized way that anyone could be an architect.
I don't
help
think
me,
that's a good idea, to be honest. I don't think that's a good idea.
right? So, and I think, in our profession, you have to have a passion for it.
Yes.
I'm a huge proponent of abundance. Although I was born and bred in New York City, which is the capital of the world, the capital of the universe for scarcity. I mean, just going to work, if you're 1 inch closer to work than the guy next to you in the car, you win. I mean, it's a crazy world, right? Try holding the door when the elevator's full and everyone's trying to get into their office, and you hold the door. You're the most hated person in that cab.
Oh, I
It's like,
believe that.
let
That's
it
pretty
close.
much what
That guy was
happens
with.
here too.
Yeah, I mean, it's scarcity, right? That there's only a finite pie, and I'm going to grab as much as I can, as opposed to the abundance model, which really I think fulfills a lot, at least of what I thought what an architect could be.
Mhm.
I knew I was going to be an architect when I was a little kid. I just loved drawing. Uh, I was lucky enough that my dad was an executive with Trans World Airlines, CBW, so I flew free my entire life up until age
Mm,
23.
you
Very
bet.
privileged, right? And I was able to go to the places instead of reading about them. Go to Rome, go to Athens, go to Cairo on the weekend and come back again. Very, very privileged that way. But what I also learned was that, if you don't think of it as a vocation, but you think of it as a mission,
Mm,
great things happen, right? And it's not to say that everyone needs to be, Rourke from the Fountainhead, but there is a nobleness to the profession when you can start to take the human-centric approach to every single thing you do. Because all of a sudden you start to realize that, well, there's very nice people in the world and there's yin and yang too, right? Very
yeah.
bad people in the world. There's, excuse the expression, dickheads, right? But to be able to balance that out and say that, well, but I want to create environments that are for everyone. I want to be inclusive. That's true. But the abundance model then brings it even further to say, this is not about you. This isn't even about who you're doing that for. It's about the greater energy out there. And
Mm,
a lot of people don't get that, because they're too much into, well, younger. I just want to get my license because then I can practice the way I want. Blah blah blah. But have you ever thought about how you practice as opposed to
mm,
what you practice?
mm.
Because how you do that and how you treat others is going to be a direct effect on the quality of your design, because design is about energy and the energy will be negative, which is why sometimes when you do walk into a space, you're going, I got to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Negative energy. That's
Yeah.
real,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to going
Mhm.
to somewhere, go, man, I could just die here,
Yeah.
and and then there's everything in between, right? So space is such an important element to the human race. I think the nobleness about what we do is that there's only three things that allow the human race to exist on this spaceship that we're on planet Earth. And that is
Mhm.
food, clean food, fresh water, and shelter. Everything else we don't need. You have to have shelter. And I think if more people could get up out of bed every morning and think, I'm keeping the human race alive, that's a pretty big, noble thing going, all right, you can actually have your coffee and have a smile instead of worrying about being in traffic in Toronto.
Yeah. There's ways around the traffic in Toronto. I'm learning all kinds of different ways to make the traffic work to my advantage. But anyway, so now that we both have youngish children, yours younger than mine, what do you think AI holds for them in the future?
They don't even know it is AI, it's just existing.
Okay.
Uh,
My
I
son
hope
is
the
a little
term
worried about it, to be honest. He's a little worried.
Well, okay, so one of my 50-year-olds is building his own computer as we speak,
Uh huh.
because he wants to take it to the next level using Claude Pro. And what he's using it for is he's learning how to build a computer from scratch. And he wants to go to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville for electrical engineering, but with a very specific focus on things like motherboards and circuitry and things like that, because that's the way his mind thinks. My other son, it's amazing how you have two sons. I think you may back me up on this. They almost have two separate personalities. Like, I raised you
Completely.
both the same, but
Yeah.
you're like this and
Completely.
this guy's like that. I'm going, whoa,
Yep. Wing!
didn't expect that.
Oh boy.
Whoa, yeah. So my other son is a little bit more savvy, street savvy. He reminds me of being a New Yorker, although he was born and raised here in Memphis. Well, not born, but he was raised here in Memphis. Both
Uh-huh.
both were born in Shanghai. So what's been interesting is Daniel is his name. He's been looking at AI as a tool to do something else, not the destination itself, as opposed to Thomas, my other one. And what I mean by that is that he looked at AI and he created an agentic tool for scheduling.
Hmm.
And he said, "Dad, could you help me go around to different food and beverage places and retailers that are franchises? Things like, McDonald's and Burger
Subway
King,
or yeah,
Chick-fil-A, yeah, that,
yeah,
and Home
Popeyes.
Depot, Lowe's, stuff like that, right?" And what he did was he went to each one of the managers because we're in a suburb of Memphis, and he said, "Do you have an AI strategy from corporate office?" And everyone's going, "No." And he goes, "Well, I see up on the wall that you have help wanted." I said, "I have a tool that can take your existing roster and optimize it for you so that you may not need to hire as many people as you think." He's making $20,000 a month. He's 15.
Good for him. Good for
I'm
him.
like, wow, that was really smart because he found what the real issue was, which was help wanted. And he figured out that you may already have, a way of optimizing the schedule so that it. Yeah, I'm just like, wow, you're 15. I was eating dirt when I was 15. Like, what the hell? So
Maybe
yeah,
not dirt, but certainly not that level.
actually it was ice shavings because I'm an ice hockey player. Played many, many summers at the Canadian hockey schools up in Mississauga. So that's why I know
Boy,
the whole the whole region of Peel and everything. And where
oh
I
my
grew up
goodness.
was on Long Island in New York, and I was literally 500 yards from the Nassau Coliseum's entrance. I was the
Ooh,
captain of my high school hockey team from 1980 to 1983, the 4 years the Islanders won the Stanley Cup. So I just thought it was a birthright. Now we've sucked since 1983, but besides
I was
that,
gonna besides that, well, you're an honorary Canadian then. All this
you know
hockey
what?
background, you gotta be an honorary Canadian.
I got schooled literally at the school of hockey. Man, I thought I was. I'm captain of the East Meadow High School hockey team, and we're winning the Stanley Cups next door, and yada yada yada. I tell you what, my first season that summer, I I got my butt kicked.
They cleaned your
It's
clock, did they?
uh, Canadians are just different breed when it comes to hockey. I
Man.
thought I was good. Man, I got schooled.
See, my dad
It was
was
not
born and
pretty.
raised in Ireland, so for me, it was soccer. Loved
Oh, there you
soccer.
go. Actually,
So hockey, I
I'm a,
watched hockey with my dad, love hockey, but I'm not a hockey player. I love soccer.
oh, that's wonderful. Actually, yeah, my dad's from Donegal, my mom's from Meath, and I'm a first generation. So I hold an Irish passport. Actually, that's
I'm thinking of getting
my
one.
sister. Definitely do it. It opens doors. And what
Yeah.
really helped me was, there's been a couple of times that, I look American, act American, sound American, right? And I remember flying back home to Shanghai from Dubai, and there was a group
Uh-huh.
of Saudi teenagers that I guess drank alcohol for the first time on their layover.
Oops.
And I had a New York Yankee hat on, and I always carried my two passports with me because I'm dual citizen. And I remember as we're after we take off that they start kicking my chair from behind. Like, boom, boom. What the hell is this all about, right? They
Mhm.
were drunk and they saw an American. So
Mhm.
let's go pick on them, right? Now, the flight attendants are sitting down because we just taken off and they're seeing this, right? And they're going, oh, got to intervene. There's going to be a mess, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I went, I'm a New Yorker. Think smart. So I got up, whipped out my Irish passport, and go, glory be to Jesus, man. You think I'm American? I'm not American. I'm IRA. I told you how to blow up this shit. They were my best friends for the rest of the flight
My God, that's
because
funny.
who hates the Irish? Now the flight attendants, after as we're deplaning, they're like, "That was masterful, thank you," because they didn't want to call the cops and just the mess, the
No.
paperwork, all
Uh,
that stuff. It's like, let's de-escalate it. Use your Irishness.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So if your quick thinking is as good with your passport as it is with AI, boy, you'll have no worries with AI at all.
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell AI who their daddy is.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So you're talking to a half Irish over here as well. You're 100%, but I'm only half. So I got a little
Well,
catching up to do with you.
it is your better half. I will say that.
Well, my mom would be very offended because my mom was from the Middle East. So she'd be very offended if you
Oh,
said that Irish was
oh,
the
that's
better
cool.
half. Well, so I think that for us in the profession, it's more about a generational change than really a tool change. And I know that sounds as arrogant as hell. It's not meant to. I just think that as you get to a certain, white hair on the roof, you get a little set in your ways and something new is hard and some people will resist that. Do you agree?
Yeah. But I would say on a case by case basis as well.
True.
I
I'm
mean,
I'm I'm making wild generalizations, but my
but I think
concern
that's with
for
any
your children and
technologies.
mine. Sorry?
I think that's true with any sort of tools is generational because I started out with, T squares on Mylar with,
Mm,
HB leads
mhm.
and really learned how to compose sheets, right?
Yep.
And then when CAD came, I dove on it because I could see its potential. And then when we created Revit, I wanted it to be where I didn't have to go through every sheet if there was a revision. It was
Mhm.
instantaneous on all sheets because you print it out from the model. And if you
Yeah.
change the model once, all the sheets would change. So
Yeah.
I saw those as incremental ways of moving from beyond hand drawing to electronic hand drawing to modeling. Now we're into a different world where the model becomes a takeoff point to things that we haven't even thought of yet.
Mm,
We are using our Revit models now as a takeoff point for generating daily worksheets and daily work orders for trades.
mhm.
Because what we find is that, especially in the Middle East, where you have people that are from Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, all these different places, that even if I were to take the drawings and the specs and convert them into their language, they're illiterate. Why bother? Why even bother? We find that also here in the South, along, Texas and Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, all the way over to New Mexico, Arizona, that you have people that speak Spanish, but they can't read it. So why bother converting everything into Spanish? It doesn't make any sense. But what they will follow are new ways of something being on their phone. Now they can look on the phone and be like, okay, my work order, I'm a drywall guy, and I have to go from here to here today, and that's it. And I can take a picture of it, submit it, and there's my daily report, and I'm done. So now all of a sudden the 3D starts to explain better what the constructability is and what your tasks are as a trade. And we're finding that to be very, very useful, in the Middle East, specifically in Qatar,
Mhm.
where we were involved originally with the build out for the FIFA World Cup.
Mhm.
And now it's about taking these neighborhoods and the legacy of the World Cup, of course, is to improve education, through facilities, healthcare through facilities, and then
Yep.
process and whatnot. And what we're finding is we're finding less errors in the field. Isn't that
That's
interesting?
good. That's
Just by
very
having
good.
3D, like little videos, that type of thing. I'm going again. I think our communication through the transformation of digitalization. I think we're just scratching the surface now. And
Mm.
I'd love to get the ideas of the younger generation more and more and more integrated into practice. So again, so that we can raise the standard of practice to be something that is just not, well, two steps away from taking a stick and drawing in the sand.
You're a very good visual learner and teacher because I see everything you announce when you pronounce what you're saying, you're describing it. The picture is being drawn in my mind. And it's like, that is a really good analogy. I love it. So, if we're going to wrap up, because I don't want to take too much of your time, what would your final words on AI and architecture be, Paul? I know that's a hard thing to do, but try your best.
I think we need to take a word back from it being used as a weapon, especially over the past 10, 15 years, and use it more in business because I think it'll help describe the way that people say, you should embrace technology. Yeah, but it doesn't hug back.
Mm,
Why?
mm.
Right. But I think it will hug back if we use this one word because it was used for Me Too and a lot of these other movements out there. And it's the word love. I think we need to use the word love in business more and more, not the romantic love. I mean, that don't be silly, right? But
Servitude love. Is
yes,
that what you mean?
the love of the profession, the love of your work, the love of yourself, the love of your team, your colleagues, love of the project. And if we
Yep.
can break through that and understand that that is part of that abundance model of why do you get up in the morning? Why even bother? I think it starts to define existence in a more meaningful way that I think will resonate with people.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's probably the last word I'd have is just let's start using love in a way that it was meant to be.
Exactly. In servitude of others, not as a servant to others, in servitude of others.
Well
And the
said.
tool should be a servitude as well. Well, thanks for your
Correct.
time today, Paul. I really enjoyed this conversation. I've never laughed so hard in my life, but I'm looking forward to talking to you again. Take care.
Thank you, Melanie, and good luck. Bye bye.